In this video, I'll be showing you how to set up an advanced note-taking system in Notion. So the note-taking system that I'll be showing you today features on my second brain template, so I'm going to be showing you step by step how to set this up, but I'll just briefly show you how it works to start. So over in the sidebar, we have this button that says add new notes. If you click on that button, you can add a new note into the system. So once you click that button, this little side peak will appear here, so I can simply write in the name of my note. So let's say I just have a video idea for a note-taking system video, I can add that in here. And you can use this page here to actually write your note. Once you're done, you simply close off the page. So it's a great way to capture notes quickly. Now, all of the notes that you add using the button in the sidebar will then appear in your note inbox. So this is where you can come to sort them into different areas of your life. So as you can see, here is that note that we just added. And in this table, I can then add a life zone. So life zones or reference areas are essentially just the different areas of your life. So this one is a video idea. So I can associate this with the YouTube area of my life. You can also associate it with a particular project if it's relevant. And you can also select a type. So this is an idea, so I'm going to select that one. And if this note is actually an article that you found on the internet, then you can also paste and save the URL in here. But in this case, there is no URL. It's not an article I found. It's just a note that I'm making for myself. So I'm going to leave that blank. And once you've filled out all the details that you need to, you can click on this inbox status here, and we're going to change it to processed. And once I've done that, it's now disappeared from the inbox, and you'll now find it in other areas of the template. So firstly, I have this favorites area where I can save all of my favorite notes. So there is actually a checkbox on here that I can select for favorite. So anything where that checkbox has been selected, it will appear here. So this is generally just all of my most useful notes, the notes that I use all the time. It's nice to have a little favorites area so you can easily access the most useful notes. And then just below we have a recents area. So I have recent notes here and then recent web clips here. So the main difference between these two is that web clips have a URL associated with them, whereas notes don't. So it's just nice to be able to separate them. So if you want to click on one of the articles that you've saved, you can even just click on it straight from the list and it will open up the article, whereas notes are just, as I say, notes that I've written myself. They're not associated with an article or anything that I found online. Now, as I said, this is actually part of my second brain template. So as you can see in the sidebar, there are a ton of different things that I've included in this template. It did take me a long time to put this together. So if you are interested in grabbing this exact template and saving yourself a lot of time, then I will leave a link in the description box below where you can grab my template. But in the rest of this video, I will be showing you how you can set up this note-taking system for yourself. So let's get started. So I've just quickly set up a brand new page. I've titled it notes, added a notebook emoji as the icon, and I've also just added this plain orange cover photo as well. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a brand new database. So I'm going to type in /database and select database inline. And we're just going to call this one notes. And then I'm also just going to hide this title. So if you just click on the three dots, we can hide the title here. Now, all new databases come with a tags property. So this isn't something we're going to use right now. So I'm just going to click on it and delete it for now. Okay, so in the first column, that's where we're going to input the name of the note. So I'm just going to leave that as is. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add a new property. So I'm going to click on the plus symbol here. And this one is going to be a select property. So if you just type that in and click on the select option. And this one we're going to name type. So it's where we're going to select the type of note that it is. So you can add a range of different options here if you just click on add an option. So the first one we're going to add is article, and if you just hit enter, it will then add that as an option. So I'm going to add a range of different options here. So the ones that I'm going to add are things like reference, idea, research, book, recipe, note, plan, lecture. Okay, so these are the options here that I've added in the end. Feel free to add whatever you like, but these are the ones that I'm going to go with. I think this covers most angles when it comes to note taking. Okay, so I'm just going to close that off. Next, we're going to add another property. So again, click on this plus symbol, and this one is actually going to be a URL property. So if you just type in URL, you'll select this option. And I'm not going to change any of the details on here. I'm simply just going to press the X. So we have this URL property here. So in the scenario where we found an article online that we found useful, say a recipe or something like that, we can simply just save the URL to that article in this box here. So you can just paste it straight in, and that just serves as a way of us being able to easily reference the original article whenever we need to. So you don't always have to fill it in if there isn't a URL associated with the note, but if there is, that's what that property is there for. Next, we're going to add another property, and this one is going to be a status property. So we're using this so that our note inbox works correctly. So if you remember at the start, I showed you that we had a note inbox where all new notes added to the system will firstly show up in the note inbox. And once you change the status to process, they then disappear from the inbox. So the inbox serves as a place for all of your new notes so that you can select the type or associate them with a life zone or something like that. So that's what we're going to add in here. So I'm going to leave the name as status, and we're actually simply just going to change the names of these. So firstly, I don't need an in progress status. So I'm just going to click on this one and click delete. and I'm just going to change the name of the not started one. So instead of not started, we're going to name it inbox, and you can actually also add emojis in here if you like. I do quite like adding emojis in here, so I'm just adding a space at the start, and then I'm just going to add this inbox emoji in at the beginning like this, and if I just hit enter, it's going to add that as the option. Now I'm also going to change the done option here as well, so if I click on there, it will let me change it. So this one I'm going to change to processed, and once again I'm going to add a space, and right at the start we're going to add another emoji. So the emoji I'm going to add is this green check mark here, so it looks like this, and again I'm just going to hit enter, and that's going to update the option here. So under this status column we now have two options, either inbox for when it's fresh in the inbox, it's a new note, and once we've processed the note and added a type and a life zone or anything else, we can then change it to process so it disappears from our inbox. Okay, so that's the first few things we need in the database. So currently I can add a note in here, so let's just say I have my new YouTube idea, and I can then open this page to actually write my notes, and when I close it, it now has this little page icon, but I think it would be nice if instead of this page icon we actually had a pin, so it kind of looked like a note on a pin board. So what we're going to do is add a default icon, so any notes that we add into this database will automatically have a pin icon as their icon rather than this page. So to do that, we're going to click on this down arrow here, and we're going to add a new template. Now I'm going to leave the name blank because that's where we're actually going to write in the name of the note, so I don't want to add anything there, but I am going to add an icon. So if you just click on this button, it will add a random icon. You can then click on this to change it. So we're actually going to use this pin emoji here. So if I click on that one, it will now add it as the icon. So that's all we're going to do here. So I'm now just going to click back, and again clicking on this down arrow next to this template that we've just set up with the pin, I'm going to click on the three dots here and set it as default. I'm going to select for all views in notes. So all that's done is now anytime I add something new to the table, so let's add a new note, and let's just call it yoga poses for beginners, and hit enter, as you can see that pin icon has now been added as default, which is really nice. So I'm just going to delete a few of these from the list. So now that we've got this database set up, I would also like to be able to select for each note which area of my life that falls into. So in my second brain template, I refer to these as life zones, as I quite like the term. So what we're going to do now is set up another database just underneath here where we're going to input all of the different areas or life zones that we have. So /database, and I'm going to select database inline, and this one I'm just going to call life zones, and again I'm just going to click on the three dots and just hide the database title. Once again I am going to delete the tags property because again we don't need it in this instance, so delete. So all we're going to do is just add in the different areas of our life into this first column. So for most of us we probably have a work life zone and maybe a personal life zone. You might also be into, for example, fitness, so you can add that as a life zone. You kind of just want to add any hobbies that you have, so if you're learning coding you can add that as a life zone, if you're into cooking and so on. So just add everything that you think is relevant for you. So I'm pretty happy with these options for now. Now to make this table look a little bit better, I'm actually going to switch it to a gallery view rather than a table. So to do that we're going to click on the three dots here, select layout, and I'm going to change this to a gallery so it looks like this. And I'm also just going to change the card preview here. So you see all this white space here. This is actually currently showing a preview of the page. Now it's currently white because I've not added anything onto these pages, but I actually wanted to show the cover photo rather than the content. So I'm going to click on card preview and go with page cover so that we can display a photo on these images instead. And I'm also just going to change the card size as well because these are quite big and I don't really need them to be that big. So if I click on here, let's go with small instead. So it's just a little bit easier to see all of the different life zones now. So now I'm just going to add a cover photo for each of these. So let's click on fitness as an example. So if you just open up the page and if you just hover up at the top, you'll see this add cover button. So I'm going to click on that button. It will then add a random cover photo. So I'm going to select change cover, and you can then either upload an image with this tab, paste in a link to an image that you found online, or you can use Unsplash, which is what I'm going to use. So this is a free stock photo library. So if you just type in something related to the topic, so let's just type in fitness, it will then bring up a ton of stock photos that you can use for free. So let's go with this one here. So once you click it, it will then load that into here. So you don't have to download it and re-upload it. You simply just click the image and it will then display. So if I just click back here, as you can see, that's now displayed on the card. You can also reposition it if you want a different area of the photo to show. So let's just put it around here. Okay, so I'm just going to add a photo for all of these quickly. Okay, so using the same method, I've just added a photo for every single one of the life zones that I've added. So it now is looking really, really nice. Now, one other thing I'm going to do is just add an icon for each of these as well. So feel free to pick an icon that is reflective of the different life zone. I'm actually just going to add a default one just to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to click on this down arrow and we're going to add a new template. So this is exactly what we did on the notes database with the other icon. So I'm just going to add an icon and click on here. So I think in this case, I'm going to actually use Notion's icon library on the icons tab, and I'm just going to type in pin and let's grab this pin icon like this. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So then I'm just going to click back, and once again we're going to click on the arrow and this untitled template here with the pin icon. We're going to click on the 3 dots and just set that one as default, and we're going to select for all views in life zones. So all that means is whenever I add something new, let's just add as an example yoga, as you can see the pin is automatically added for us. When we go on this page, the pin displays here. So I'm just going to delete that one. Now because we've already added these into the database, it doesn't add it to stuff that's already in the database, so you will just have to click on these and you will see the template displaying here. So you can just select it and it will just add the pin icon for you, so you will have to do that on every single one. Okay, so I've just done that for each of these, so as you can see it looks a lot better now. Okay, so just going back up to our notes database up here, I do just want to add one more property. So I'm going to click on the plus symbol here and we're going to just type in last edited time and select this one. Now this is something we're going to use for filtering and sorting later on, so you don't actually need to do anything other than we're just going to change the date format here from a full date to relative. So this just means that instead of displaying the date, if it's today, as you can see here, it actually says today rather than the date. So it's just a nicer way to view the information. So I'm just going to leave it as a relative and just click the X. Now we don't actually need to see this in the table here, so I'm going to click on this and just hide it. But as I said, we're going to use that later for sorting and filtering our notes. So now that we have our notes database here and our life zones database, it would be great if we could connect these two together so that when we add a new note into the notes database, we can select which life zone it is related to. So we can do that using a relation property, which simply just connects two databases together. So let's add another property on here and we're going to type in relation and grab this one. Now the first thing it's going to do is ask me to select which database I want to relate this database to. So we are going to select the life zones database, and that will bring you to this page. So firstly it's just going to remind me which database I've selected, so it is life zones, which is correct. Now I am going to leave the limit as no limit, so this means that I can select multiple different life zones if I want to for a single note, which I think could be useful in certain scenarios. And it's also going to ask if I want to show it on life zones. Now in this case I don't really need to, so I'm just going to leave that off, and then I'm just going to click add relation. So if we now have a look again at our notes database, you'll notice that there is a brand new column on here called life zones. So if I actually click on this box, it will now bring up all of the different life zones that we have in the life zone database. So essentially I can just select the one that is most appropriate. So this is my new YouTube idea, so I'm going to select the YouTube life zone, and as you can see that's now been associated. So this is going to be really useful to us later on so that we can sort our notes based on the area of our life that they fall into. So at this point I am just going to add some example notes into this database for you so that we have a bit of data to work with. Okay, so I've just added some notes into the table, and I've also filled out the URL for a few of them. I filled out the type, and I've also filled out the life zone as well. So there are a few things that we can do to make this look a little bit better. So the first one is that the URL is displaying in full. Now I don't really need to see the full URL, and it does take up a lot of space. So what I'm going to do is just click on the column here, and at the bottom you'll see this wrap column toggle. So I'm actually just going to switch this off, and as you can see it's now just displaying the start of the URL, which I think looks a little bit better, and it means that the table isn't so cramped. I'm also just going to pull the status to the front, and I can also just make some of these columns a little bit smaller. The same with this one as well, just so it doesn't take up as much room. Okay, so I think that looks a lot better. So this table is going to become our note inbox. So it's where we're going to see all of the new notes that we've added into the system, and we can then select a type. We can also select the appropriate life zone, and once we finish filling out the details, we can then change the status to processed, and it should then disappear from the list. So in order for that to work correctly, we do need to add a filter so that we only see items where the status is set to inbox, and once you change it to processed, they should disappear. So let's add a filter up here, and the filter is going to be for the status property. So we only want items to show where the status is inbox. So I'm just going to check this box here next to inbox, and as you can see, the note that had the status of processed has now disappeared. If I just change this one as well, that one disappears, so it is now working correctly. I also want to sort these based on their created time so that the oldest note shows at the top of the list. So I do just need to add one more property for created time. So let's add another property, and if you type in created time, you can select the created time option. So I'm going to leave the details the same. I'm just going to click the X, and again, this property I don't actually need to see, it just needs to work in the background. So I'm just going to click on it and hide it so that we don't see it. But now I can actually add a sort by the created time. So if I click on sort, as you can see, the created time is still an option. So if I click on that, and we are going to sort by ascending so that the oldest notes show at the top of the list. So as I said, this is our note inbox. So let's add a heading up here for the note inbox. So just above, I'm going to type in /H1 and select the H1 heading, and we're just going to call this note inbox, and feel free to add a background color. So I'm going to click on the 6 dots here, select color, and let's go with a gray background. I also think it would look nice if we had an emoji at the front. So I'm just going to place my cursor here, type a colon like this, and then if you start typing the name of the emoji you want to appear, it will show up. So let's go with the inbox emoji. So I've typed inbox, and I'm going to select this one. I'm then just going to add a couple of spaces in between it at the start so it just looks a little bit nicer. You might also want to add a divider underneath, so I'm just going to hit enter and type in 3 dashes in a row, and that's just going to add a divider, and I'm just going to delete that blank space so that it looks like this. And I think that looks really good. I'm also going to change the tab name here from table, so I'm just going to click rename, and let's just call this one inbox as well. And I'm even going to change this icon, and let's change it to this inbox icon as well. Okay, and then click X. So now that we have our note inbox set up and working correctly, we now want to be able to see all of our recent notes. So that's what we're going to start adding next. So just underneath the note inbox, I've just added a little bit of space. So I'm going to start by adding in 2 columns. So I'm going to type in /2C like this and select the 2 columns block. So we now have 2 columns. Here's the first one and here is the second one. So I think it would be useful to separate the notes from the web clip. So essentially the web clip is just going to be anything that has a URL associated with it. So it's just an article I found online that I thought was useful. So I've saved it as a note, and the notes are the ones without a URL. So in the first column, we're going to have our notes. So I'm going to type in /H1 to add a heading, and I'm simply just going to write recent notes. And to make it match the heading that we have for the note inbox, let's add a gray background. So if I click on the 6 dots, select color, and let's go with gray. And you can also add an emoji at the front as well. So I'm going to add the colon, and let's just go with a pencil like this. And again, I'm just going to add a couple of spaces before and after so it looks a little bit better. And you can also just add in the divider underneath. So if I just hit enter and 3 dashes, it's just going to add a divider like this. In the second column, we're going to have our web clips. So I'm going to type in /H1 to get a H1 heading. And this one is going to be recent web clips. And again, I'm going to make it match this one. So I'm going to click on the 6 dots, select color, and let's go with gray. And I'm also going to add an emoji. So let's add the colon, and this one can be a link like this. And again, just add in a couple of spaces here. And I'm going to hit enter, type in 3 dashes, and we're going to get this divider as well. So this is all set up and ready to go. We just need to add in the actual database. Okay, so let's start with the recent notes. So I'm going to type in /list, and I'm going to go with this list view database here. So in this case, I want to use the exact same database that we've already set up as our note inbox. So it's this notes database here. So that's the one I'm going to select. And it's going to ask me if I want to copy an existing view. So in this case, I don't, because if I copy this view that we've already created, it's going to input that table that we created before for the note inbox. But I actually want to see a list view in this case. So I'm going to select add new empty view. And as you can see, it's already selected list. So I'm just going to click done. And as you can see, we now have all of the notes that I've added into the system in a list. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hide this title because I don't need to see it. So I'll click on the 3 dots and hide the title. Next, I do think it would be useful if next to each note it displayed a few details that I would find useful. So to do that, I'm going to click on the 3 dots here, select properties, and this will then show all of the properties that we have in this database. And you can click on this little eye icon next to the ones you want to show in the list. So I think it would be useful to see the life zone. So I'm going to select that one, the type of notes, and I also want to see the last edited time as well. So I'm going to select those 3. And if I just click this X here, as you can see, those are now displaying on the list, which I think looks really nice. Next, we're going to add a sort onto this. So I actually want the notes to be sorted based on the last edited time, which would mean that the most recently edited notes will show at the top of the list. So the ones that I've edited recently are clearly the ones that I'm using often. So I think it would make sense if they were at the top of the list. So we're going to click on the sort here, and we're going to sort by the last edited time. And you want to make sure this says last edited time descending. So it will start with the most recently edited note. So now that we've added that, if you have a look in the list, as you can see, the most recently edited one is right at the top. Now, the last thing that I want to do here is add a filter. So in this section, as I mentioned, we only want to see notes where there is no URL associated with it, because anything that does have a URL is actually a web clip. So that's going to display in this other column over here. So in order to filter out anything that has a URL, we're going to add a filter. So I'm going to select filter, and we're going to filter based on the URL property. So it comes up like this. So if you just click on the word contains here, you can actually set it to is empty. So this will therefore only show entries where the URL property is empty. So therefore there is no URL associated with it. So it is a note rather than a web clip. So as you can see, a few of the items disappeared from the list. So those were the ones with URLs. So those are going to display in this other column over here. So this one, as you can see, is just the items that are notes. So this section is all ready to go. So now I want to create the exact same thing, but for the web clip. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to duplicate this view and just make a few small changes. So if you just click on the 6 dots here and select duplicate, it will then add a copy. Okay, I'm then just going to grab this duplicated view here by clicking on the 6 dots and simply just dragging it and placing it over in this column under here. Now the first thing we're going to do is change the filters. So in this case, I only want to see items where there is a URL associated with it. So if I click on filter, and we're going to click on the URL filter here, and I'm actually just going to change it from is empty to is not empty. So as you can see, once I've clicked that, the items have changed. So we now have completely different items in each of the list, which means it's working correctly. So these are the ones that have URLs associated with it. Now, I do think it would also be helpful if you could actually see the URL itself on this view so that I could actually just click straight on the URL and go to the web page if I wanted to. So what we're going to do is click on these three dots here, select properties, and we're going to add the URL property on here. So I'm just going to click on this I symbol, and I'm actually just going to move it right to the top of the list. So it's the first thing that you see after the name of the note. So if I just click X, as you can see, that's now displaying on the list. Now, because we have two columns here and there are a lot of things displaying on this list, it's getting a bit cramped over here. So I'm just going to remove one of them so we have a bit more space. So again, click on the three dots, properties, and I think let's remove type because that's probably the least important thing on here. So again, if I click back, there's now a little bit more space. So it's really up to you depending on your screen size or what you like the look of. Feel free to remove another one. You could maybe remove the life zone or the last edited time, whatever you like. I'm just going to leave it as this for now, but as I said, just feel free to amend that as you please. So that is this section all set up. So now whenever you add new notes, they will either appear in the recent notes if it's a note, or if it's a web clip, it will now appear in the recent web clip section, which is really cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add a favorite section. So in the example I showed you that we had a favorites area, so you can actually favorite notes that you find the most useful, the ones that you want to access all the time, and we're going to set up a favorite section. So I'm actually going to add it right in the middle just after the note inbox because I think it's going to be one of the most important parts. So we're going to add it above the recent section. So to start, we're going to add a heading. So let's add another H1. So I'm going to type in /H1 and grab this H1 block, and this one is going to be favorites. And once again, I want it to match all of the other headings, so I'm going to click on the 6 dots here, select color, and let's go with gray. And I'm also just going to add an emoji at the front as well, so I'm going to type in the colon and let's do a star for favorites like this one, and again just adding in a couple of spaces so it looks a little bit better. And finally underneath, I'm just going to add in that divider by typing in 3 dashes. Okay, so we now have an area for our favorites view. So we're going to add another list view like we have down here, so I'm going to type in /list, and once again select this list view database block, and again we need to select the exact same database, the notes database that we've been working with this entire time. So it's going to ask me if I want to copy the original table that we set up. In this case, again, I don't, because I want it to be a list view, so I'm going to add an empty view, and it's automatically selected as a list, so I'll just click done. And as you can see, we now have a list with all of our notes within the system. Once again, I'm just going to hide the title because we don't need to see that. Now the first thing that we need to do is actually add a checkbox for favorites. So I'm just going to go back up to the original database here, and we're going to add one more property. So I'm going to click on the plus symbol. This one is going to be a checkbox, and I'm simply going to just call this one favorite like this. So we can use this checkbox to favorite notes. So let's just say that this ultimate roast potato recipe is my favorite note, and maybe also this JavaScript for beginners. So these are the two that I'm selecting as my favorites. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to see the favorite checkbox on the inbox or not. You can click on here and hide it if you want, or you can leave it on here. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to leave it there for now. So just going back now to our favorites area, what we're going to do is we're going to add a filter. So I'm going to select filter, and we are going to filter based on the favorite checkbox. So we only want to see entries where the favorite checkbox is checked. Okay, so as you can see, all of the other notes have disappeared and only the two that I've selected as favorites are now showing up, which is perfect. Okay, so I do just want to see a few other details on the list. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots here, select properties, and in this case, let's show the life zone. And I also want to see the last edited time as well. Feel free to add whatever you like on here. You might want to add the type, the URL, or anything else, but I'm just going to leave these two on here so I can easily see which area this note relates to and when I last edited the note as well. Okay, so that's all set up now. So anytime that I check that favorite checkbox, the note will now appear in our favorites area. Okay, so most of our note-taking system is now set up. I also want an easy way to be able to add new things into the database. So one of the things that I love about the note-taking system in my second brain is that I can be on any page within my second brain template, and I can easily add a new note into the system simply by just clicking the new note button, which appears on every single page in the sidebar. So I don't have to come to my note-taking page to add something to this table. I can simply just click the button in the sidebar and it will be added instantly. So we are going to set up a button like that you can add any way you like. It's perfect to add on, for example, a dashboard or a sidebar. So in our example, I'm going to add it right at the top. So what we're going to do is add a button. So I'm going to type in /button and select this option. So it's going to start by asking what I want it to do when you press the button. So I actually want it to add a page to our database. So I'm going to select that option. It's then going to ask me which database I want it to add the page to. So of course, we're going to then select our notes database. Now we're going to leave the name here untitled because that's just going to be the name of the note. So you're going to fill that in when you add the note. So just leave it as that. We're then going to add one more step, and I actually want to open the page. So when when I'm clicking the button, I need it to open a page so that I can add my note. So I need to tell the button to do that. So I'm going to select open page, and then it's going to ask me which page I want it to open. So I actually want it to open the new page that we've just added. So I'll select that option. So that's all we need to do here. I just need to give the button a name. So I'm going to say new note, and I can also add an icon here. So let's just add a plus symbol so it's really obvious that this button will add a new note. And the final thing I'm going to do is where it says open page in, it's currently set to center peak. I actually prefer it when it comes up as a side peak. This is completely up to you, but I think a side peak is a little easier to use. So I'm going to select that one, and we're going to click done. So as I said, you can add this button on any page within your Notion space. It doesn't have to be on the same page as your note-taking system. So you'll simply just click the button and you'll see this side window pop up. So you can simply use this space to write down your notes. Let's just say that I have a pasta recipe I want to note down. So you can use this page down here to actually write the notes. And once you've written your note, you can simply just close off this page. And now when you have a look at your note inbox, you'll see that new note here appearing, and you can then select the relevant type. You can add it to a life zone. You can add in a URL here if appropriate. And then once you're done, you can change the status here to processed, and it will now disappear and show up down here in our recent notes. So as I said, this is the system that my second brain uses. There is a quick capture button in the sidebar on every single page, so it doesn't matter where you are in the template. You can easily add a new note when it comes into your mind, and it doesn't take you away from what you're actually doing. And then once you have a little bit of time, you can come to the note inbox to actually process the different notes and sort them into different areas of your life. Now, the final thing that I want to do here is work again on our life zones area. So I think it would be really useful if I could click on my fitness life zone, and it would bring up a page with all of the notes and web clips that I've saved related to fitness. So that is the final thing that I'm going to show you how to set up. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to duplicate this entire section here, and then we can filter it based on the life zone. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to firstly just duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate this one as well. So just click on the 6 dots and hit duplicate. And I also just want to duplicate the title here as well. So I'm just going to duplicate both of these titles. Okay. And then I'm just going to drag this one and place it here. Similarly, drag this one and place it here. And then again, I'll just add in that divider by adding the 3 dashes. Okay. So now that I have these underneath, I'm simply just going to highlight all of them, and I'm just going to copy them. Now on our life zones area, I'm going to click on the down arrow here, and we are going to edit the default template that we set earlier. So I'm going to click on these 3 dots and click edit. So if you remember, we set this up earlier just so that we could add this icon. So the first thing I'm going to do is just click on this 3 dots here and make this page full width so that we have a bit more space on the page. And I'm also just going to open this full page so it's a bit easier for you to see. And then I'm simply just going to paste them in here. So now we have the recent notes and the recent web clip section on our individual life zone template. Now the only thing we need to do with these is filter them based on the current life zone. So what we're going to do is add a filter, and I'm just going to select add filter, and we're going to filter based on the life zone. Now one really cool thing that I love about Notion is that when you're setting up a template, it will allow you to actually select that template as the option. So this untitled template is the template that we've set up. So I'm going to select that as the option. So essentially when you create a new life zone, it's going to replace the untitled template with whatever that new life zone is. So let's just say that I add flower arranging as a new life zone. It's going to replace this untitled with flower arranging so that when I add new notes, they're automatically going to be pulled through onto that new page, which is really, really useful. So I'm just going to save that. And because there are no notes within the system that have a life zone of untitled, everything will then disappear from the list, but that's absolutely fine because as I said, this life zone will get replaced once you add a new life zone. We're going to do the exact same on the web clip. So add a filter, and we're going to filter based on life zones, and we're going to select this untitled template here to filter by. So this is what it looks like. So we're going to hit back, and that's going to take us back to this page, and I'm just going to hit back once again. Okay, so just to show you how that works, let's go with the cooking life zone as an example. So if I just click on the cooking, and let's just open this full page. As you can see, I can select this untitled template. So let's click on that one. It's just going to add this template in here. So it's just loaded. So as you can see, it's already pulling through all of the notes that I've labeled as cooking. So we have a pasta recipe, my meal planning, and under web clips, we have some recipe web clips that I saved. So as you can see, I didn't have to filter these databases at all. It automatically filtered it all for me based on the cooking life zone. Okay, so now anytime you add a new life zone, that template will automatically be added. So let's just briefly add another one. Let's say this one is yoga. So as you can see, the template has automatically been added. So there are no notes here because I haven't associated any notes with yoga. But if we just click on here and check the filters, as you can see, we have a filter here for life zone yoga. So it has automatically added that filter for us, which is really useful. The final thing I'm going to do on here is I'm just going to change the name of this from gallery. So let's click rename, and let's just change this to all life zones. And I'm also just going to change this icon as well. I think just a circle would look nice. And finally, we're just going to add a heading as well to match the other ones. So /H1, and this one can be life zones. I'm just going to change the background to gray, add in an emoji. and just add a divider in here as well. Okay, so this is now what it looks like. So I'm just going to delete these duplicated versions of the recent notes and web clips that we made earlier. So this is now what we're left with, and that is everything. That is the note-taking system all set up. So that's it. If you did like this note-taking system, then I'd recommend checking out my second brain template, which features an even more advanced note-taking system. It includes fleeting notes, which auto-archive themselves after 1 month of zero activity to keep your workspace clutter-free. It also allows you to connect your notes with projects, and you can also set up goals, tasks, and more. I will leave a link to the template in the description box below, and you can also check out this video, which shows the second brain in a lot more detail.